following program is a production of Ho'ike Kauai Community Media.
Today we're here with representatives from VOAD, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, and our theme for today is VOAD, the biggest disaster organization you've never heard of. But I do want to see, have you heard of it? Raise your hands. VOAD. Hey! All right, it's such a great resource for our Hawaii community. I became involved with VOAD back in 2018 when we had the flooding on both the north and south shores, and was just blown away by the amazing skills and talents of our entire VOAD community, and realizing what do they do for our community. So here we are today. I'll introduce our panel. We have Patrick Gallagher, Melody Lopez, Scott Bacon. They've got a mic just over on the table, so if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to explain, what do you do for your day job, and what's your role at VOAD?
Morning, everybody. I'm Melody Lopez. I am the program administrator at Catholic Charities Hawaii. That's my day job. I've been a social worker for 20 years now. But for VOAD, I am the chair for Kauai. We call it a COAD, the county level. And then I am the treasurer for the state, Hawaii State VOAD.
Aloha, everybody. My name is Scott Bacon, and I live in Anahola. I've been here on Kauai for quite a while, since 2000 is when I came to Kauai. I am the vice chair for the Kauai VOAD. I am also part of the LDS Church, and so I'm like the representative for emergency communication and disaster recovery for the LDS Church. That's how I got involved with VOAD. And that started in 2018 is actually when I got involved. When we had the big flood, I started helping back then. My normal job is this all volunteer work that I do for VOAD. My normal job, I have my own scuba business. I do scuba tours for my normal job.
Hello, my name is Patrick Gallagher, and I've been involved with VOAD since 2015, when I formerly with Red Cross, now I'm with Humane Society. But I've been involved as a past chair, vice chair, and for I think the last 4 or 5 years I've been member at large, director at large. But been involved with VOAD since I started with Red Cross in 2015, working every major disaster we've had since then.
Thank you, folks. Okay, let's start off with just a couple questions here for our panel. To Melody, can you explain for us the stages of disaster management? Tell us about the cycle.
Okay, give me the hard question. No, but before we get into that, I just wanted to explain. So VOAD, for those that don't know, is Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. And we are an affiliate of so Hawaii State VOAD is an affiliate of the national VOAD, right? And that is a bunch of different organizations that mitigate and alleviate the impact of disasters, provides a forum promoting cooperation, communication, coordination, and collaboration, and fosters more effective delivery of services to communities affected by disasters. So that's kind of who VOAD is and what we do. And so in that, there's that 4 C's that is really important. And then Patrick taught me and other people have taught me along the way that there's other C's. Do you guys know of the other C's that can happen in a disaster? Right, so the ones that we like to focus on is communication, cooperation, coordination, collaboration, doing it together. But oftentimes there's like chaos.
Right, the collapse.
Collapse. Other C's that you guys seen in a disaster? Crisis. Crying. Confusion. Right? So there's a lot of other C's happening. And so in that question that Milani is asking, kind of what is the process? One of the first things that I do rely on is our local emergency management systems, right? So Kima has developed a great relationship with VOAD over the past few years. And Patrick, so I'm my right-hand man and my left-hand man here, right? So Patrick, my right-hand man, with American Red Cross, he always sat in there first thing because shelters would be the first thing that usually is discussed in a disaster. Because in disasters, you talk from, negative days to ground zero, right? And then day 1, 2, 3, 4. So working with Kima is really important, and Haima, right, the Hawaii level Kima. Okay, so he sits in there, and for me, that's important because I can get information for him. We've developed with Kima where VOAD actually has a seat now that we can sit in there as well on a daily basis to get briefings. So that's the first thing, is really assessing what's going on, right? And I wanted Patrick to kind of follow up on that part.
So does everybody know what the Emergency Operations Center is? Is that familiar? No, I know a few of you. But basically what it is it's an as it says in the words, Emergency Operations Center. So when we have any type of disaster, and it doesn't have to be a major disaster, it can be something smaller, say a multi-family fire, where that Emergency Operations Center gets activated. All of the key players get involved depending on what that disaster operation is. So if we're looking at something like the North Shore floods, it's going to be fire, police, highways, water. Red Cross would be involved there because of sheltering. So all of that information gets funneled through the EOC, whether it might be, so a family needs to be rescued, or somebody needs prescription drugs because they're caught on the other side of the bridge and they don't have their diabetes drugs. So all of that information gets funneled through there, and then it gets funneled out to partners like VOAD. Okay, who can handle something like that? Here's what's happening, here's where it's needed, here's the resource that's needed and where it's needed, so it gets funneled out to where it's needed. Because what we found in the past, and in the past we're talking 1970s is when VOAD was first founded, is there were a lot of overlapping of duties. You had, during a disaster operation, you might have 10 organizations that are dealing with feeding and nobody doing damage assessment, or nobody doing distribution of emergency supplies, where they have a ton of food, but they have food in their refrigerator, they need a tarp. Nobody's distributing those tarps. So that's where VOAD is, where we work with that collaboration and cooperation. So it can be a uniform effort that resources get to people that need it in a timely basis. I hope I didn't hog it.
So that's kind of the initial phase of what happens. And then of course, we are connected with our members at all times. And so we're sending out emails to our members, letting them know what's going on. And we do, what are those called? The briefings every day.
Yeah.
Daily briefings of where the disaster is heading, right? I mean, we can't predict it, but we do the best we can with the information we have. Now, once the disaster hits, one really important thing, the next step, is we do an IAP, right, an incident action plan, and we provide that to Kima, and it states what VOAD is going to do, so that they understand who we are, who the organizations are that are involved, and what they can do. One of the first things is something that Scott does, which is the damage assessments. That's very important. So when the county is telling you, did you have damage, and they want you to report it, please report it, because we work with them. A lot of people are hesitant to report. For various reasons, probably legal reasons, right? Because they don't want information being shared. So that information, though, we do have a partnership with Kima that we share that information, and then we start something that's called crisis cleanup. And so I wanted Scott to talk about that.
Yeah, so there's everybody has a little bit different roles within VOAD, and there's a few organizations, well, quite a few different organizations that are like kind of first response to the disaster. Once the county and the fire department and Kima says it's okay for volunteer organizations to go in and assist. Then we have a bunch of different organizations. A few of them, I just pulled up my list so I could look at them, but a few of them are the LDS Charities, Team Rubicon, if you've heard of that one.
Yeah.
Let me get the rest of my list here. Not on every event, but on many of them. The Southern Baptist is a big group that will come in and help. If you remember in 2018, there was a really large group of the Southern Baptist organization that came in to help. Of course, there's lots of different other organizations that lend assistance. Even Home Depot, they provide supplies for us when we go out to assist. I'm just looking for the ones that go out initially. Had a couple in there. There's a Mennonite group, pretty big group that's not stationed on Kauai, but they come over. Anyways, those are the big ones: Team Rubicon, Southern Baptist. And so, same thing that Patrick was talking about, when all these organizations show up, they said, "Oh, we're here to help." So that there's no chaos, we have to kind of organize with each other and coordinate with each other who's going to go help where. And so that's where Crisis Cleanup comes in. It's a software, like an internet-based software. And once the incident is reported, so once people call in and they say, "Oh, we got flood damage in our home, our gas pipes are leaking, we have no water, our roof is leaking, a tree fell on my house, or a tree is blocking my driveway," these are the things that the VOAD members help with. So we go out pretty fast when it's a disaster, because we want to help get the driveways cleaned, clean out mud to help reduce the amount of mold that's going to happen in the house during flooding, or put tarps on roofs, or remove trees from the tops of houses. Those are a lot of the normal things we do. But just like Patrick said, a long time ago when we were trying to do this, everybody showed up and they came with their chainsaws and their shovels and their power washers and their, all their equipment, and they would just start going. And there was like duplication of efforts. Everybody was kind of trying to go to the same neighborhoods and help the same people, and there was other people that didn't get any help. Not that doesn't happen now, like we can't help everybody, but with Crisis Cleanup, we enter in each of those reports, we put the address in, and that actually makes a map. It just has a regular map, like a GIS map, and it shows the status of what happened, what the community member is asking for assistance with, and then we go in, all of us, even though we're different organizations, we all log into the same site, and we select which ones we're going to work on. Usually we try to divide it up by areas, but sometimes it's based on your specialty. If you are a sawyer, if you're good at like cutting down trees, then they'll take those assignments. That way we don't duplicate efforts, and we can keep track of what's been done and what people are requesting. And kind of the important thing about all this is we can see how many people need help. If there is a lot of people, if there's a huge demand of residents that are asking for help, some of the organizations like Team Rubicon especially, and Southern Baptist, Americans First, that's another one I forgot.
Yeah.
These organizations send people from the mainland in big groups. I think during 2018 flood, Samaritans First and Southern Baptist and Team Rubicon all sent like 40 or 50 volunteers each. And they set up a headquarters and they went and helped, these are just volunteers that come from the mainland. So once we find out the need, then we can actually get more assistance from around the nation. So there are local-based organizations. We're all very small, and sometimes, the disaster may just be in one area on Kauai, and so we don't need a lot of people to come, but sometimes it's the whole island. In 2018, we also had the volcano eruption on the Big Island, which kind of spread our resources a little bit thinner. We had people here helping with the flooding, and we had people over there helping with, there's a hurricane that hit over there too. And so that way they can actually request more assistance when we start to see the workload increase. And then just a little bit of background for Crisis Cleanup. It's all just a free software for VOAD members to log on and look. And we request residents to report and ask for assistance. We make a hotline. So there'll be a hotline. Usually Kima announces the hotline or goes out on Kong radio where they announce the hotline number and people start calling in. But we also try to let them know that we are volunteer organizations. We do as much as we can. We can't help with everything. And that kind of goes along with what Mel asked me in the first place. She said about our initial assessment. So for VOAD, our initial assessment is to see who needs help. Not necessarily the monetary one. That's what Red Cross does. Red Cross coordinates, with the local government, and they go out and they do assessments. And Patrick can talk about that to figure out damage assessments. But we're more assessing to see how many people are impacted and how many volunteers we're going to need. And so we're looking to see who's going to need help.
Thank you, Scott.
So I just wanted to do a real quick follow-up. The reason crisis cleanup is really important is, and this isn't just here, this is nationally, one of the biggest complaints that clients have on disasters is, I am tired of telling somebody the same story over and over again about what I did or what happened. So crisis cleanup is one of those central housing databases of information, so that we can all look at that and know this person needs this, and we don't have to go out and ask that person that. And it's a timely thing. So if that information gets put in there quickly, we can get that relief to that person right away. And we've seen, at least I've seen the disasters that I've worked, that we're not having to go out and talk to somebody 3 or 4 or 5 times to get the same information. There's not that relief fatigue with that particular person. So, right.
Hey, keep the mic real quick, Patrick, and I'll toss out this kind of two-part question. So first, reminder for everyone here, so VOAD, like Lihue Business Association, is a membership organization, right? And so organizations opt in to participate in VOAD. And my question now kind of centers around communicating with the organizations, exactly. So, as needs do get met in certain areas bit by bit, well, number one, how exactly are you disseminating the information to the member organizations? And then how do you shift the approach once the needs start getting met in various areas?
Yeah, so we do all sorts of different communication, but the main thing is emails, and the fact that we have that crisis clinic center database. We are really lucky on Kauai. I know that we can pick up a phone and call some individual and say, hey, I can call up Mel and say, this is what's happening. I know that there's a storm or they're predicting something, and we can put the wheels in motion. So I think that we're extremely lucky in that regard. Everybody knows each other, so they can pick up the phone and handle it right away. Now, once a disaster is happening, we'll do, and Mel kind of talked about this a little bit, is we'll do daily briefings, and those 9 times out of 10, those will be on a Zoom call. So we have everybody on one of those calls, and we can talk about what's happening, what the needs are, what we did cover, what we're moving forward, where the needs are, and what are the actions for the day. And we'll disseminate information throughout that day, whether it's a text message, email, phone call, whatever. Those are the main types of forms of communication that we have. I hope I mentioned it.
Well, that's great, thank you. So then, for anyone, with the member organizations, right, it's a organization of voluntary organizations, and each of those organizations have their own staff and volunteers. So how does an individual become a member or participate as a volunteer during a disaster?
I wanted to go back to the first question too, sorry, because
Yeah.
after the disaster and the assessment and all of that, there is long-term recovery, right? So with Catholic Charities Hawaii, we do long-term recovery. So just like, for an example, Maui is still in long-term recovery, right? Kauai, we're still in long-term recovery. From 2018, as well as this year, there was a flood, April 2024, in which we all partnered in and worked, and we continue to finish that flood up. So this is an ongoing, when you look at the cycle, it's continuous. We are always working in disasters. There's always a disaster somewhere, and we're affiliated nationally. So even if we're not working here, people are working on other disasters out there. But to become a member, Jen, if you can help me We do have membership meetings every single month. Let's just pass out that one first. And then, so we do have applications, and because we do disseminate information to members only, right? Because when you're a member, you're vetted, right? We're telling people that you're part of BOAD. So that's why a lot of times the members get information, the first-hand information, right? So I strongly suggest, if you have any capacity to work in disaster, to fill out an application. It would go to me, your payment, right? And so at the state level, that's where we approve new members. So if you can imagine in 2018, Kauai flood or Maui last year, a lot of new people wanted to be members. They all wanted information. So it starts at the state level, the information and disseminating that, and who we do that to. We gotta be really careful. We're not trying to scare people, right, on what's happening. We're trying to provide accurate information with people who are able to help with the disaster. And so a lot of people come in, so just be careful of that too, in disasters and want to help the community. They could be new organizations. So knowing that you're a BOAD member means you're vetted. I think that's really important, and you will be getting the information. And so me and Scott, we keep track of our membership list on Kauai, and that's who we usually send information to. If we're going to do a general information session, like this year, Scott held an emergency fair. So we sent that out to everybody. So we have kind of two lists. Because we know in a time of emergency, we're going to have to work with all nonprofits, whether they decided to be a member or not. There's a lot of those that pop up. There's pop-ups, right? During disaster. And so these nonprofits or people that just want to help and do good work, we're going to have to work with them anyway. So we'll involve them in the larger communication.
Let's continue on that for a second then. And so some of our member organizations, what are the categories then of support that they provide, right? We've got food, we have housing, right, for the long-term recovery side.
Yeah, so sorry, can you guys hear me in the back? Can hear better, not if I hold it there. So, yeah, everybody has a little bit different role, but when it comes down to membership, we pretty much invite everybody because the more people that we can have helping, the better it is. You have to be an organization, so it could be a business, it could be a small business. You have to have something that you can contribute towards it. So that could be like Home Depot, for example, they contribute supplies. So that's a good example of one role that a member could play. Other people provide volunteers, and other people provide donations. So those are kind of the three big things. So if you can do any of those, if you can provide volunteers, donations, or supplies, or we even have some people that they just assist with phone calls. For example, Malama Kauai during the 2018 flood, they did a lot of different things, but one of the things they did was they actually took phone calls for the crisis cleanup hotline that we were talking about. And so any of those things, they're just volunteering their services. If you can provide any of those things, then we would be happy to have you as a member. Some of the other roles that everybody plays, so like Habitat Humanity, Catholic Charities are mostly focused on long-term recovery. I'm sure they'll talk about that a little bit more. For like my organization, LDS Charities, Team Rubicon, those are the kind of the two main ones on Kauai. We're mostly focused on initial muckouts. So especially floods, that's kind of what we reacted to mostly, is we're trying to get mud out of people's houses, remove debris, help with like leaking roofs, those kind of things. Of course, Red Cross is sheltering. That's their big one. Salvation Army is feeding. So they're taking care of food needs. They provide a lot of food. In the past, Malama Kauai has been like a place that receives donations. That's also a very interesting thing in disasters. I don't have a good example from Maui. I'm sure there were a few different ones, but during the volcano eruption on the Big Island, it made really big news because a volcano disaster in the United States was huge news. And people started sending donations that they didn't even need, like sweaters and coats and jackets. And they started getting big containers full of these things that they didn't need. So that's that's a big problem sometimes with donations. People just send everything that they can. And I'm sure it happened on Maui. Did you guys have any good examples on Maui? Did you hear of any good examples on Maui? Anyways, things like this happen when, so we need somebody that can control donations is another big one. What am I missing? Some of the other big ones.
Emotional.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Melanie wanted me to talk about the 8 ways that we actually help. So Scott mentioned sheltering and feeding. Those are the 2 big ones. The next one is emotional and spiritual care. There are several different groups out there that help with that. Red Cross does assist with that. And then some of the other things that we didn't get mentioned was communication services. So there are several different ham radio groups across the island that they help with emergency communication during any kind of disaster. And donation management is really one of the bigger ones that VOED helps with. One of the disasters I helped with was the Thomas Fire on the mainland. And I'll never forget, I worked in a unsolicited donations warehouse. And it was basically a Cineplex where we had, I think it was 8 movie theaters that were abandoned that were completely filled with unsolicited donations. And all of that stuff that we couldn't give away, because if people give clothing, it has to be cleaned, it has to be sorted. So that's manpower that's doing all of that, sorting all of that, that is taking away from somebody that could be helping with feeding, that is a definite need. So I don't know if I'm getting off topic here.
The main one that came to my mind when you said that was in April, we did have an emergency preparedness fair I think we had 25 different booths of organizations that came to the emergency preparedness fair and talked about how to prepare in advance for those disasters. And everybody had a little bit different topic. But even Kima set up a booth there, and they had a booth there, and the fire department had a booth there, along with Team Rubicon. With Kauai Search and Rescue had a booth there. So anyways, we have done that in April, and it went pretty well. It was kind of my first one that we organized, but hopefully we'll have more of those in the future. So that's one thing, is just having a place where people can present and share that information of how to prepare for a disaster. But as far as other preparation, do you guys have another comment on it?
Yeah, I know it does say we're active in disasters, but yeah, we meet monthly, and we're always talking amongst ourselves of, what things can we do, who can we involve. I know recently one of the groups that has become a little bit more active with VOED at a state level is Hawaii Wildfire Management. They're based in Big Island, working with them to do a lot of preventative mitigation. So there's all those types of groups, but it is one of those things that when we have those monthly meetings, that members come to those monthly meetings. It's not a Zoom call, so it's not like it's a huge time commitment, and that's where we share a lot of the information so that we can do that, and we all support each other. So if Red Cross is having a community education event, we invite VOED members. To promote this, even though it's a former organization, October 12th, we're doing another fire alarm installation in Kamakani. And we invited Team Rubicon to help out with that. So incidents and things like that we help out with a lot of the mitigation. So.
Any other questions? Jen.
Hello, Jennifer here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. One question, what are 3 things you might recommend the business community do to support the work you do? And second part of that question is, can you speak about how that might be same or different at various phases, whether it's prevention, crisis management, or long-term recovery? Thank you.
The 2 biggest things that I can think of, one is involvement. get on my little soapbox here. I've been, like I said, I've been involved with VOED since 2015. And I always like to say, when I'm coining a phrase here, is decisions are made by those that show up. I've been with those first 3 years with VOED, it was myself, somebody from KEMA, and Department of Health. Lauren was here, so you can thank her. And nobody showed up to those meetings. We couldn't get anything done. After 2018, we had 40 to 50 people show up. And since then, it's gotten a lot better. Mel has done a great job of getting more groups involved with this. I think that's one of the big things is involvement. Stay involved with this. Disasters aren't going away. There's not a disaster season anymore. One of the other things too is if you can't be involved, donations. It's always going to help, whether it's a blue sky or gray sky. We've got money now in our coffers so we can send some of our members to trainings, and those trainings help out in numerous ways that they can bring that information, lessons learned, not just here, but maybe on the mainland. I would tell my volunteers, we learn from every disaster, regardless of where it happens. We learn something from that. So taking that and bringing that information back and that knowledge just reinvigorates everybody.
I think our businesses on Kauai are so important, and it starts with you guys. So have your own disaster plan. I have some brochures, Are You Ready? Right? So work with your employees and make sure you have your own disaster plan for your business. That's really important. That's the first step, and then get involved. You know, I have applications today. You guys can apply if you want to get involved and be a member. And so you can be part of the solutions when disasters come up. But definitely it takes all of us to get through a disaster, and we've experienced that on Kauai, and we do pull together, and I think the businesses play a really important part in that, offering whatever you can, as we mentioned earlier. I mean, even if it's just a bag of ice back in Iniki days, you know, people came together and they offered whatever they could. So every business has something different to offer. So don't ever assume that because you're a business and you don't do disaster, you don't have anything to offer. I think you do.
They covered that very well, but one thought that I had was kind of like this organization. You guys meet together so you get to know each other. So by being part of VOAD, we get to know each other so that when a disaster happens, we know who to contact. If I wasn't involved in VOAD, I wouldn't know Patrick. As you may know, Patrick had a former role when he was with Red Cross, but I wouldn't know Patrick, and I wouldn't know him to contact him and say, okay, where is the evacuation center? When is it going to open? Is it going to open? Or now we can ask Patrick, like, where is the Emergency Humane Society evacuation site? Where do I go if I have pets, right? I think that he knows all those answers. He's done that.
Not yet. I've only been there for days.
But anyways, being able to just know each other and network. Maybe one of your businesses happened. We were just talking about it. Me and Patrick were talking about it. That there was a disaster for one business in Papa'a. That his business burned down. Maybe it's one of your businesses, and if we know you and you know us, you can call out and ask for help. So it's nice just to be able to be in contact and know each other.
Melody kind of talked about this real quick, but it's always bad to exchange business cards in gray sky. And you don't want to do that. So yeah, things like this, it's really helpful. Thank you guys.
Exactly. Thank you, folks. So that will conclude our presentation today. I think I'd love to have all of us offer a big round of applause for our team right here from our own Hawaii VOAD. Just a thought as I listen to you guys finish up that final question. So, many of us, right, we run businesses, do all sorts of things in the community, and depending on what situation we have at hand, there's a lot of stressors out there, and we can be prepared. But how are we preparing mentally? How are we handling or working out ways to handle the situations that confront us on a daily basis, weekly, whatever? Our folks here run teams who they provide social services. They're providing teams on the ground, digging out what we need to help the survivors in our community come out of disaster. And so my final question here before we finish up is, how do our folks providing services get the support that they need? I know this was very critical, especially, we saw it emerging in 2018 and other instances after that, but certainly with the Maui fires.
I would say just stay in contact with people, especially with VOED. Now that you know who VOED is and what we do, there's no excuse to reach out to us. So,
One of our working groups is spiritual care and emotional care. So we do take that very seriously. And so for the caregivers and all the workers that, just like firemen do it on a daily basis and police, right? In disaster work, it is tiring. So just look out for each other. And that's what Scott's saying, relationships is so important. Like, okay, Scott, you did great on crisis cleanup. We're going to relieve you now. Who's the next person to go on? Team Rubicon, right? And so we do look out for each other in that sense. And just an FYI, the Hawaii State VOAD leadership is all brand new. Maui happened, I believe that team was tired. So tag, we're it. And we're taking on that responsibility for them so they can recover. And hopefully maybe when they're ready, they can come back. And so it's things like that, because long-term recovery, again, we're still in long-term recovery for many disasters in Hawaii. And so we recognize that importance of self-care and taking care of one another.
Thank you, folks. Melody, Scott, Patrick, mahalo. I think we need to keep the round of applause going for our friends here at Duke's. So not only are our member dollars contributing to programs like this, Duke certainly does. They contribute to the Boys and Girls Club, the Kauai Lifeguard Association, so many other communities here on Kauai, but certainly for Lihue Business Association in helping us bring information to you. They host us here, provide this wonderful spread every month, and so Dukes, we thank you. Mahalo. Any quick announcements that our audience or members want to provide before we part ways? There's some flyers on the registration table actually that the Kauai Philippine Cultural Center would love to share. We're hosting our first ever Philippine American History Month celebration, 2 days at the Philippine Center on October 8th, Friday, October 18th, and Saturday, October 19th. You can get tickets online or through a couple of the board members, so I hope you can join us and learn about the Filipino culture here in Hawaii.
And there's a council forum and I think other positions tonight at the Philippine Cultural Center at 5:30.
All right, thank you. 5:30 tonight at the Philippine Cultural Center. Thank you, everybody. Get home safely. Have a great weekend.